Hello, here we are. We're going to get going. We're going to do Ezekiel chapter 3. So here we go. Now, you remember there was a big vision going on and a scroll was given to Ezekiel so that he might eat it. And he said there was lots of woe and lament on the front and back of that scroll. So here we are continuing. And he said to me, "Son of man, eat what's before you. Eat this scroll, then go and speak to the people of Israel." So I opened my mouth and he gave me the scroll to eat. Then he said to me, "Son of man, eat this scroll I'm giving you and fill your stomach with it." So I ate, and it tasted as sweet as honey in my mouth. He then said to me, "Son of man, go now to the people of Israel and speak my words to them. You are not being sent to a people of obscure speech and strange language, but to the people of Israel, not to many peoples of obscure speech and strange language whose words you cannot understand. Surely if I'd sent you to them, they would have listened to you. But the people of Israel are not willing to listen to you because they're not willing to listen to me. For all the Israelites are hardened and obstinate. But I will make you as unyielding and hardened as they are. I will make your forehead like the hardest stone, harder than flint. Do not be afraid of them or terrified by them, though they are a rebellious people." And he said to me, "Son of man, listen carefully and take heart to all the words I speak to you. Go now to your people in exile and speak to them. Say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord says, whether they listen or fail to listen." Then the Spirit lifted me up, and I heard behind me a loud rumbling sound as the glory of the Lord rose from the place where it was standing. It was the sound of the wings of the living creatures brushing against each other. That's what I heard, folks. And the sound of the wheels beside them, a loud rumbling sound. The Spirit then lifted me up and took me away, and I went in bitterness and in the anger of my spirit with the strong hand of the Lord on me. I came to the exiles who lived at Tel Aviv near the Kibar River, and there, where they were living, I sat among them for 7 days, deeply distressed. At the end of 7 days, the word of the Lord came to me. "Son of man, I've made you a watchman for the people of Israel. So hear the word I speak and give them warning from me. When I say to a wicked person, you will surely die, and you do not warn them or speak out to dissuade them from their evil ways in order to save their life, that wicked person will die for their sin, and I'll hold you accountable for their blood. But if you do warn the wicked person and they don't turn from their wickedness or from their evil ways, they will die for their sin, but you will have saved yourself." Boy, that's an onus. I mean, if you were told, listen, if you withhold my word and that person dies in their sin, their blood's on your hands. Oh my goodness, okay? That would make you speak no matter what. Speak the Lord's words. "Again, when a righteous person turns from their righteousness and does evil, and I put a stumbling block before them, they will die. Since you didn't warn them, they'll die for their sin. The righteous things that person did will not be remembered, and I'll hold you accountable for their blood. But if you do warn the righteous person not to sin and they do not sin, they will surely live because they took warning, and you will have saved yourself." The hand of the Lord was on me there, and he said to me, "Get up and go out to the plain, and there I will speak to you." So I got up and went out to the plain. And the glory of the Lord was standing there like the glory I'd seen by the Kibar River, and I fell face down. Then the Spirit came into me and raised me to my feet. He spoke to me and said, "Go shut yourself inside your house. And you, son of man, they will tie with ropes." "And you, son of man, they will tie with ropes. You will be bound so that you cannot go out among the people." Sounds like quarantine with COVID, huh? not to make a dumb joke. I will make your tongue stick to the roof of your mouth so that you will be silent and unable to rebuke them, for they are a rebellious people. But when I speak to you, I'll open your mouth and you shall say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Whoever will listen, let them listen. And whoever will refuse, let them refuse, for they are a rebellious people. Ezekiel 4. Now, son of man, take a block of clay, put it in front of you, and draw the city of Jerusalem on it. Then lay siege to it, erect siege works against it, build a ramp up to it, set up camps against it, and put battering rams around it. Then take an iron pan, place it as an iron wall between you and the city, and turn your face towards it. It will be under siege, and you shall besiege it. This will be a sign to the people of Israel. So he's telling him, make a clay block, take a block of clay, draw the city of Jerusalem on it, and then lay siege to it. In other words, erect siege works all around it, get battering rams around it. In other words, show them. Then take an iron pan and place it as an iron wall between you and the city, and turn your face toward it. It will be under siege, and you shall besiege it. This will be a sign to the people of Israel. Then lie on your left side and put the sin of the people of Israel upon yourself. You're to bear their sin for the number of days you lie on your side. I have assigned you the same number of days as the years of their sin. So for 390 days you will bear the sin of the people of Israel. After you finish this, lie down again, this time on your right side, and bear the sin of the people of Judah. So for over a year, I've assigned you 40 days, a day for each year. Turn your face towards the siege of Jerusalem, and with bared arm prophesy against her. I will tie you up with ropes so that you cannot turn from one side to the other until you finish the days of your siege. Take wheat and barley, beans and lentils, millet and spelt, put them in a storage jar, and use them to make bread for yourself. You're to eat it during the 390 days you lie on your side. Weigh out 20 shekels of food to eat each day, and eat it at set times. Also, measure out 1/6 of a hin of water and drink it at set times. Eat the food as you would a loaf of barley bread. Bake it in the sight of the people, using human excrement for fuel. He's painting a picture to these people of what's going to happen to them. The Lord said, in this way, the people of Israel will eat defiled food among the nations where I will drive them. Then I said, not so, sovereign Lord. I've never defiled myself. From my youth until now, I've never eaten anything found dead or torn by wild animals. No impure meat has ever entered my mouth. Very well, he said, I'll let you bake your bread over cow dung instead of human excrement. He then said to me, son of man, I'm about to cut off the food supply in Jerusalem. The people will eat rationed food in anxiety and drink rationed water in despair. For food and water will be scarce. They'll be appalled at the sight of each other and will waste away because of their sin. Man, it would do them good to see what Ezekiel is painting, the picture he's painting in front of them, and take heed. All right, Ezekiel 5. We could probably use really looking into that, so I think we will after this chapter. Now, son of man, take a sharp sword and use it as a barber's razor to shave your head and your beard. Then take a set of scales and divide up the hair. When the days of your siege come to an end, burn 1/3 of the hair inside the city. Your hair smells so bad when it burns. Take 1/3 and strike it with the sword all around the city, and scatter 1/3 to the wind. For I will pursue them with drawn sword. But take a few hairs and tuck them away in the folds of your garment. Again, take a few of these and throw them into the fire and burn them up. A fire will spread from there to all Israel. This is what the sovereign Lord says. This is Jerusalem, which I've set in the center of the nations. So the world doesn't revolve around America, it revolves around Israel. Israel is in the center of all the nations in God's sight, folks. You know, we tend to think, all eyes on America, and all eyes are on America, okay? But the center of the nations, the way God sees it, is Israel. We just tend to think, you know, everything that happens in America is of the utmost importance. And it is, but you get what I'm saying. Because, you know, if America falls, the world falls, okay? All right. This is what the sovereign Lord says. This is Jerusalem, which I've set in the center of the nations, with countries all around her. Yet in her wickedness, she's rebelled against my laws and decrees more than the nations and countries around her. She's rejected my laws and has not followed my decrees. Therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says. You've been more unruly than the nations around you and have not followed my decrees or kept my laws. You've not even conformed to the standards of the nations around you. Therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says. I myself am against you, Jerusalem, and I'll inflict punishment on you in the sight of the nations. Because of all your detestable idols, I'll do to you what I've never done before and will never do again. Therefore, in your midst, parents will eat their children and children will eat their parents. I'll inflict punishment on you and will scatter all your survivors to the winds. Boy, that's punishment if you're eating your children, and vice versa. Therefore, as surely as I live, declares the sovereign Lord, because you've defiled my sanctuary with all your vile images and detestable practices, I myself will shave you. I will not look on you with pity or spare you. A third of your people will die of the plague or perish by famine inside you, meaning they'll be in captivity. They'll be inside the city or inside the country, and the siege ramps, or Jerusalem, the siege ramps will be all around, okay? A third will fall by the sword outside your walls, and a third I'll scatter to the winds and pursue with drawn sword. Then my anger will cease, and my wrath against them will subside, and I'll be avenged. And when I've spent my wrath on them, they'll know that I, the Lord, have spoken in my zeal. I'll make you a ruin and a reproach among the nations around you in the sight of all who pass by. You will be a reproach and a taunt, a warning and an object of horror to the nations around you when I inflict punishment on you in anger and in wrath and with stinging rebuke. I, the Lord, have spoken. When I shoot at you with my deadly and destructive arrows of famine, I'll shoot to destroy you. I'll bring more and more famine upon you and cut off your supply of food. I'll send famine and wild beasts against you, and they'll leave you childless. Plague and bloodshed will sweep through you, and I'll bring the sword against you. I, the Lord, have spoken. And that's through Ezekiel. Now, you can imagine how that message was received. Let's just look up Ezekiel 4, an enduring word. And let's look at... let's just look at that whole thing that he was doing. Signs of siege and exile, you know, with the lying on one side. Okay, it says, living in Babylon, and this is referring to take a clay block and lay it before you and portray on it a city, Jerusalem. It says, living in Babylon, exiled by force from Jerusalem many years before, Ezekiel received God's command to depict Jerusalem on a clay tablet. It was of soft clay, baked to make it durable, such as the Babylonians used for writing purposes. It says the practice of sketching a city plan on a clay brick is confirmed by several exemplars discovered by archaeologists. Okay. Lay a siege against it. And this is what I was imagining. It says, like a child playing with toy soldiers, Ezekiel arranged a siege wall against his clay Jerusalem along with the camps of siege armies and their battering rams. Okay, so we understand that. It was sort of like, it's like a child playing and showing them. All right, and then it says, take for yourself an iron plate. We heard like iron pan or something. Set it as an iron wall between you and the city. Finally, Ezekiel made an unbreakable barrier between himself and the scene he constructed. This symbolized the barrier between God and Jerusalem, meaning that God would not intervene and rescue Jerusalem in the coming siege. Okay, then we do the lie also on your left side, lay the iniquity. Okay, God commanded Ezekiel to enact another sign. Enact, meaning acted out in front of them, related to judgment against Israel, presumably lying on his bed in his house. Ezekiel was to lie on his left side, and in some unknown symbolic way lay the iniquity of the house of Israel upon himself. Says here, the symbolism of upon your left side was probably helped out by the prophets lying on the ground in an east-west direction with his head towards Jerusalem and facing northwards as if towards Israel while on his left side, and southwards towards Judah while on his right. Okay, so we get that. So this is all play acting, okay? Let's go to one more chapter, and that will be Ezekiel 6. The word of the Lord came to me, Son of man, set your face against the mountains of Israel, prophesy against them and say, you mountains of Israel, hear the word of the sovereign Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says to the mountains and hills, to the ravines and valleys. I'm about to bring a sword against you, and I'll destroy your high places. Your altars will be demolished, and your incense altars will be smashed, and I will slay your people in front of your idols. I will lay the dead bodies of the Israelites in front of their idols, and I will scatter your bones around your altars. Wherever you live, the towns will be laid waste and the high places demolished, so that your altars will be laid waste and devastated, your idols smashed and ruined, your incense altars broken down, and what you've made wiped out. Your people will fall slain among you, and you'll know that I am the Lord. The Lord doesn't like idols, does he? But I will spare some, for some of you will escape the sword when you're scattered among the lands and nations. Then, in the nations where they have been carried captive, those who escape will remember me, how I've been grieved by their adulterous hearts, which have turned away from me, and by their eyes, which have lusted after their idols. They will loathe themselves for the evil they've done and for all their detestable practices. And they'll know that I'm the Lord. I did not threaten in vain to bring this calamity on them. This is what the sovereign Lord says. Strike your hands together and stamp your feet and cry out, alas, because of all the wicked and detestable practices of the people of Israel. For they will fall by the sword, famine, and plague. One who is far away will die of the plague. One who is near will fall by the sword. And anyone who survives and is spared will die of famine. So will I pour out my wrath on them. And they will know that I am the Lord, when their people lie slain among their idols, around their altars, on every high hill and on all the mountaintops, under every spreading tree and every leafy oak, places where they offered fragrant incense to all their idols. And I will stretch out my hand against them and make the land a desolate waste, from the desert to Diblah, wherever they live. Then they will know that I am the Lord. Boy, God bless you. You need to be coming out of this knowing that the Lord doesn't look kindly on idol worship. Okay, so if you find yourself, looking into horoscopes or, looking at anything that would be like soothsaying, stop it. Okay, because the Lord doesn't look kindly on it. He wants to be your only God. He's very jealous. Okay, and these people had altars everywhere, in the hills, the mountains, under all the beautiful trees, in the city, in their homes. And he's saying, I'm going to lay their dead bodies all around their altars. Now, you got to get the point when you see everybody lying around the altars. They're not lying over here or over there. They're over at the altars dead. That's what idol worship brings, okay? So let's keep ourselves from idols. You know what the idols are in your life. It really could be anything, but there's obvious ones, and then there's some that are not so obvious. Okay, you might be doing drugs. That's an idol. Oh, you better stop. You better get help. I don't care how good they feel. I don't care how you just need to do it one more time. That one more time might be your last, and you wake up in hell. God, it's not going to be worth it. Okay, now I know there's a lot of Christians here listening to me, so I know you're not drug addicts, and it's okay. Drug addiction isn't a moral issue, okay? Any human being on earth can get addicted. But if there are people here that are addicted to alcohol, or even Christians, if you're addicted to alcohol, or if you're not a Christian, or you're on drugs, whatever, okay? Get help, all right? Put yourself down. You know, when you feel yourself saying, no, I got to do it one more time, you say, no, 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 I'm not going to do it this time. I'm going to call the hospital right now. And it's going to take an act of your will. But I'm telling you, you will be so glad that you had one uncomfortable, painful moment talking to a nurse at the hospital to kill your addiction than to stand in hell for eternity. And in my mind, eternity means now, constant now. It's your condition that you're in forever, now. It will always be now, and you will always be in that condition. You think you have problems now in this capacity? Don't let drugs kill you, okay? I love you very much, and I will see you tomorrow. We'll pick it up with Ezekiel 7. Have a wonderful evening. Good night.